The city of St. Louis, a city full of highs and lows. From the beautiful attractions of the Gateway Arch, Forest Park, which hosted the 1904 World Fair, to a city that has one of the highest crime rates in the United States, the city of St. Louis. But at the same time is the heart of the anti-racial movement. See, while I was waiting for Director Pinkney to show up, I was just scooting around a little bit, checking out St. Louis and its views. So here to And then he had arrived, Director Pinkney, the Director of Youth and Families. He works at the City Hall, where the mayor works, and he is the Director of the Youth and Families of the St. Louis City. Make sure to vote on April 6th. Many cities are having their mayor elections, and if you are not able to vote because you are a sophomore or a senior, make sure to apply to the St. Louis co-worker where you'll be able to volunteer at polling booths and also help out with the elections. Joined by Director Pinkney, who is the Director of the Youth and Families of the St. Louis City. He works in the mayor's office. Director Pinkney, we thank you for your support for youth and children. And so my first question to you is, what is your favorite part of your job, and what is one accomplishment that you feel proud of as your job?
To the community, obviously that's been a challenge with COVID, but I like getting out into community to talk to people about the things that are important to them and the things that they need. I'd say maybe a couple of things I'm proud of. One is bringing people together to really talk about the challenges facing our community, especially around those who have been justice involved. So one of the programs that I've helped shepherd through has been the 911 call diversion program and the crisis response units. 911 call diversion program and the crisis response units that are working in the city.
Can you believe that? He just talked about the crisis units in the 911 call program. And an ambulance passed right through. That was not a sound effect, by the way. That was actually real. What a coincidence. What a coincidence.
That are working in the city. And so the 911 call diversion and crisis response units are really around trying to identify what people's needs are so that there's no need for the police to respond, that people who can provide the level of care that they need can respond. And then I'm also proud of a lot of the work in supporting the early childhood centers, working collaboratively with those center owners to try and make sure that people have the ability to have a place that's safe to leave their children when they're at work.
Yes, that sounds amazing. And my next question to you is, a number of city schools have been closing due to low attendance and enrollment. How can we help these high school students get back in school and receive an education and complete high school?
So one of the things I think would be important is talking to young people and finding out what are some of the challenges they're having. Once again, obviously COVID's created some challenges, but I think, ooh, oh.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you just saw that right. I just scheduled an interview with a director of education and families, and my camera dropped in the middle of it. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to mess up, because you have to mess up to 6. Anyway, back to the video.
So COVID's created some challenges for young people in school, but there were challenges that existed before then. And so for me, it's really engaging with kids to understand those challenges, but also to make sure we're providing programming and opportunities and the things that address those needs when they're not in school, right? So if we can make sure there's programming and those out of school times, they can be better prepared when they are in school and hopefully be more successful in graduating.
So, yeah, and my next thing to you is, how can we help fight the drug violence and improve the safety in our neighborhoods?
So drug violence, drugs are a really serious issue in all society. And so I think one thing is having better education about the fact that substance use and substance abuse is really a public health issue. And we need to take away the stigma that is associated with people that suffer from that disease. I think it's also around educating people about solutions. In terms of violence in the community, I think we need to engage people more in communities, once again, to find out what are some of the things that they feel are important. I think we need to create more ways to create activity in communities, because the more people are out and about in communities, the less crime there will most likely be, because there's activity, right? And so we really need to engage with communities. We need to improve police community relations, so that people feel more comfortable with the police, talking to police, and vice versa. So those are a couple of ways I think we could really address drug use and violence.
So research shows that for these youth, parks is a good way to reduce crime and drugs. And parks like O'Fallon parks and fairground parks actually need renovation. So what can the St. Louis city do to build parks like these for the youth out there?
So once again, one of the first things is to talk with communities to find out what they want. Every community is different in terms of what they want to see in their park. Obviously, just fixing up the parks is important, because, as I said before, we want to activate the parks. We want to make sure there's activities going on that bring people to the parks, and families to the parks. So therefore, that hopefully will decrease violence and some of the illegal activities that may go on in parks. I have convened a group of people that are really having a conversation about this issue, because we do want to activate parks, and we do want to get rec centers involved, because many people engage the rec centers, and every rec center in the city of New York is attached to or across the street from a park. So I believe both candidates who are running for mayor now feel really passionate about youth and about parks and outdoor activities. So I expect that we'll see a lot of movement, but engagement is the key.
And speaking of parks, my project, we're hosting basketball tournaments for the youth. We see several, something related to sports is we see several baseball fields that were built in the St. Louis city by the Cardinals that are not being used. So what can the city do for these children to get out there and start using the resources that have been built for them?
Well, I think we need to really get out and find out how much interest there still is in baseball in the city and in kids. Try and cultivate more interest. Try and make sure there's the equipment and the ability for them to engage in that activity if they want to. And where they may not be an interest, then we need to talk with the community about other ways to utilize that park. I know soccer is a big thing in the city. Maybe we could transform those parks into soccer fields so that kids can use it for that. So it's really just, once again, about engaging the community and children and finding out, or young people, and finding out what they want.
Yes, and do you think that maybe invest in programs that teach the kids how to play and giving the and host leagues so they can play is a good idea?
Programs like that currently, as far as I know, in the city. And so maybe sometimes it's just about raising awareness that those programs do exist. Some of the challenges may be a family having the ability to take their kids to the place where the program is. So we want to try and bring that ability to more locally to where kids live. And so that's why I really talking to the community, because we can have a ball field in one neighborhood, but maybe a family doesn't have the ability or feel safe traveling to that neighborhood. But we don't want people to miss out for those reasons. So we really need to hear from the community about what they would like.
And yes, and Director Pinkney, a lot of these cities like Richmond Heights and Clayton actually have youth councils. Would the St. Louis city be willing to start a youth council, giving youth the opportunity to be involved with their government, city government, and invest in the youth government?
Yeah, youth councils are important, and there's been some work already in the city around violence prevention with the Violence Prevention Commission and the Youth Violence Prevention Partnership that have engaged youth and have had leaderships councils made up of youth. So yes, we need to look at that, see how we can expand that. And once again, I think both candidates for mayor are really passionate about this issue, and I'm sure they'll be willing to really dig a little further and figure out how to make that happen.
With youth going into many different fields, we've seen many young entrepreneurs in the city. And so how can the city support these young entrepreneurs?
So I think the first thing is making sure we know who they are. Really connecting and understanding who they are, where they are, what their interest is, what vision do they have for the city and for their own entrepreneurial pursuits, right? And then making sure we provide them the support to grow those entrepreneurial ventures, because if they're successful, the city's successful. So definitely we need to figure out who they are if we don't already know, and figure out if they know the opportunities that currently exist through the city to help promote and grow their entrepreneurial ventures. And if not, what do they need?
Yeah, thank you so much, Director Pinkney. The final question will be, what should young voters, youth voters, consider when they are voting for the mayor in their city?
I think the first thing is making sure they're well aware of the platforms of any candidate who's running. And then as you learn about those platforms, you have to think about the things that are important to you. And then you want to choose the candidate that most aligns with your preferences, with your ideals, right? But you need to really look into those issues, understand both sides of the issue so that you can be a well-informed voter.
Director Pinkney, thank you so much for answering our questions today and for your service to our city and to the youth of our city.